Okay, awesome. Thank you everybody for being here today. I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic because more than just allergies, this is basic information that everybody should know for all things health, because all diseases start in the gut. If your gut's not breaking down your food properly, there's a whole slew of things that can happen between inflammation and chronic disease. So while we are going to focus on allergies, know that there's a greater thing to learn from this today. So bye-bye allergies. Today we're going to talk about food allergies and seasonal allergies, and we're going to explain why they happen. So our learning objectives today are understanding what increases our risk for allergies, why are they happening, what is going on today. Next, we're going to talk about gut health and a little bit about what's called leaky gut syndrome. It's a fairly new terminology in, I guess, we call the functional medicine world. I would say it's starting to get into regular medicine and conventional medicine and Western medicine now, that terminology. We're going to learn about 9 steps to improve your allergies right now. So these are food allergies and seasonal. And then also some lifestyle modifications to alter your gut health long term to improve your allergies in the long run. So first we need to understand, what are allergies? There's a couple different kinds. There's food allergies, there's food intolerances, and there's also seasonal allergies. So we're going to cover each of these very briefly. So food allergies are the ones that are emergencies. This is where you see those people jabbing their leg with the EpiPens. You need to carry it with you at all times. Children, peanut allergies. The most common foods are eggs, peanuts, wheat, soy, sesame seeds, and shellfish. Those are some big common ones. But these are the ones that are life-threatening, where you get hives all over your body, there's swelling, whether it's your mouth, your tongue, you have difficulty breathing. This is the one where you gotta go to the hospital right away. Different from, well, we're gonna keep talking about this. So the incidence of food allergy is pretty high. So there's over 32 million Americans right now that have this very emergent allergy with them currently. About 1 in 10 adults and about 1 in 13 children. So when we look at the CDC reports that from 1997 to 2011, there has been a 50% increase in food allergies. Between 97 and 2008, the peanut allergy and tree nut allergy has appeared to have almost tripled. So what is going on? Why are these rates so high? You can't even step near a school ground with peanuts anymore, right? People are so sensitive. So we talked about food allergies. Now we're going to talk about food intolerances. So this is different. This is kind of like those small symptoms that you'll experience that don't really tell you something is wrong. You may feel nauseous. You may have some diarrhea or constipation, some cramping. Some people will have respiratory problems where all of a sudden they get stuffy, their nose gets congested, or they have difficulty breathing, but it's very mild. They might have some brain fogginess, confusion. They can't come up with words. They're tripping. Sometimes you're dropping things a lot. Like your nervous system gets very stimulated. You don't really realize it. Next is you could have mild skin reactions, so eczema that would just seem mild. Oh, maybe it's my lotion, maybe it's this, when really it could be something that you ate, but it takes a longer time to express itself. These type of allergies take anywhere from up to 5 days after eating the food that you can have a reaction. So these are slower. But the problem is that most people, when they don't realize this is happening to them as a result of food, or they know it happens to them when they eat certain foods, yet they continue to do it, what happens over the long term is that you can actually increase your risk for autoimmune disease, neurological disorders, and more. And this is all clinically studied. So you'll see these little notes here. These are all from clinical research and evidence based on what's out there today. So we're seeing that if you keep ignoring these things, it can become a bigger problem later on. So it's better to handle them now. So now seasonal allergies are different. These are pollens, trees, flowers. These are when you go outside, you're stuffy, you're congested, not as serious. These actually last a lot longer for a lot of people during this time of year. And I've seen people have allergies almost the entire year. It's not just seasonal anymore. But what this tells me is that their immune system is becoming more irritated and more sensitized, and so it's just aggravated by every little thing that comes to it. So what's happening? Why are we having an increase in these allergies? What's going on? And so what we're noticing is that the latest research is telling us that an emerging body of research indicates that it is a result of alterations in the normal human gut flora. So this is our gut bacteria. This is our gut health. You're probably wondering, what the heck does this have to do with allergies? We're going to get to that. So, fun facts about our gut. Our gut does a lot more than we appreciate it for. For one, we are more bacterial cells than we are human. Research indicates we're 10 times more bacterial than we are. They're on our skin, our body, our hands, our mouth, every part of our body we're colonized. We're meant to live symbiotically, which means we're meant to live together, we help each other out. The gut-associated lymphoid tissue, also known as the GALT, is the largest of lymphoid tissue in the body. Big words there, let me break it down. Lymph tissue, right? Your tonsils, you have them in your neck, you have them in your groin. When you're sick, these things swell up, they get tight. That's your lymph system. Our lymph system is the highway system for our immune system. Just like our blood vessels move our blood, our lymph moves our immune system. The biggest concentration of that group of organs, the lymphoid tissue, is in the gut, which tells us that over 70% of our immune system is in the gut. And if you think about the gut, I want you to think of it this way. It's a hollow tube from your mouth to your anus. It essentially is a connection to the outside world. This is where things get into the body. And so it needs to have its immune protection there because that's where it's exposed to all the different things that are coming in from the environment. So it has to be on point. From the moment something hits your mouth, you already have immune cells being secreted in your mouth. When it doesn't like something, it tags it. It's your IgA is what it's called. It tags it so that when it gets down into the gut, the other immune system goes, oh, this guy, let me grab him. He's not supposed to be here, let me get rid of it. So our immune system is very intelligent. We need to honor that it is doing a lot of things that we don't see. On the second thing, these are some outside things that are cool about the gut, is that 95% of our happy hormones are made in our gut. So when you think about people who have gut problems, they're gassed, they're bloated, they're constipated, all of a sudden they're angry, they're irritable, they're upset. And it's because they're connected. There's research that shows that for every one message that goes to the, gut, there's 9 that come back up to the brain. So there's a lot of communication going up to the brain from there. So we need to appreciate that our mood is controlled with our gut health. And the next thing that our gut microbiome does is that they digest our food, they make B vitamins and other nutrients for us so that we can live happily together. They also protect us against the bad microbes, right? In the medical world, we fight bugs with antibiotics and big hitters, but the best weapon of all is bugs against bugs. It's their territory. They know how to keep each other in check. So the whole world that's coming out now is how do we help our bodies with probiotics, prebiotics, fiber? How do we balance it that way? Because antibiotics, we'll talk about a little later, can be worse in the long run. So what causes these alterations in our gut? That's the big question. First, it's something called the hygiene hypothesis. This is basically we live in a really clean environment. We're constantly cleaning, scrubbing, using really harsh chemicals, over alcohol sanitizing, all the time, that we are keeping things too sterile. Another thing is that we're spending too much time indoors. We're not actually exposing ourselves to different microbes. And so our immune systems aren't properly stimulated. And so when it does see something, it overreacts. I have a friend who, I call her a COVID baby. She was born in 2020. She stayed home her whole life. She's now 2 years old. She still doesn't go to daycare or school. She has a nanny that comes in. And just this year, she just started going out to family parties and events and being outside. And my friend reached out to me and says, my kid, she's got the sinus infection. She's been on amoxicillin for 4 or 5 days. She's not getting better. She's still got all this snot. It's not helping. And I said, it's probably not bacterial. I said, it's likely viral, and it's probably, she hasn't seen anything in 2 years. So now her body's going, well, what is going on? So I told her to use her mom instinct to call the doctor, because the doctor wanted to switch her to a harsher, more stronger antibiotic. And I was like, oh my God, no, please don't do this, because you're just going to create more problems in the long run. And I'll talk about that on the next screen too. So another thing too is that we have something to consider. A lack of early childhood exposure to microbes sets you up for allergies later in life. So why do we know this? Well, we know that there are lower incidents of allergic disease. Let me just clear that for a second. In different, so we studied our civilized Western populations, and then we studied our different unindustrialized countries, like people in Africa and not so developed. And what we found is that the more that they are exposed to microbes, the less allergy and incidence disease. So here's a few populations. So people who own indoor pets have shown to have lower incidence of allergic disease. It's because of dogs outside, digging in the dirt, being in contact with other critters and animals that are out there. Children who grow up on farms, because they're, again, in the dirt. Those who consume raw or unpasteurized milk is another one. And that's because unpasteurized milk contains really good microbes that are beneficial for the gut. People who cannot tolerate gluten, what they're finding in research is because they have been consuming pasteurized milk since the 50s when that started happening. And we need that specific bacteria that we get from milk in order to break down the gluten. So the fact that we pasteurize our milk all the time, we now are missing that. It's a missing piece of some of the bigger picture things that are going on. So what else causes alterations in the human gut flora? So this has to do with early childhood not being exposed to bacteria. When we have our children through cesarean section, we are not exposing them to microbes. When the baby passes through the vaginal canal, the baby gets coated in all the mother's flora that's all around there. Some women, they poop when they give birth, right? And that's actually important. The stool is a seed for the baby. It almost what they call inoculates the baby. Babies, when they're in the womb, are sterile. They have no bacteria, but when they come out, they get coated with mom's flora, and then that's how the baby grows their own gut health and their own microbiome. When a baby is born cesarean section, guess what microbes they're picking up? The ones from the hospital. The nurses touch them, the doctors touch them, whatever's floating in the air. They're getting the more virulent, aggressive, non-native things because antibiotics makes those aggressive strains live. I'll get to that in a second too. So the baby's getting inoculated with the wrong stuff. So that sets you up for more allergic conditions. The next is formula feeding. They've actually studied human breast milk to find out what are the contents of it, what's in it. And one of the things that's in there that they discovered is a specific fiber that even if the baby can't break it down, we realized that that is a fiber that the gut microbiome breaks down, so it's food for the gut bacteria. So now what they've done just recently is there's a supplement that you can take that contains that same fiber that's in mother's breast milk. Very important. Another thing that's really cool about breast milk is when the baby latches on to mom, the mother and the baby's saliva communicate with each other. So the mom changes her nutrients based on what the baby needs. So you can see the baby is always getting nutrition day to day based on that constant communication, where formula feeding is always the same stuff every single time and no fiber to help that bacteria grow. So if you can't breastfeed, I understand it's difficult, it's challenging. I'm like, when I have babies, if I can't breastfeed for some reason, I'm going to purchase someone else's breast milk. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of nutrients in there that you can do to help support the baby, even if it's supplemental and it's not all the time. Another thing is antibiotic use. So I have a love-hate with antibiotics. So antibiotics have its place. In acute care settings, surgery settings, reducing infection, we have absolutely saved lives and prevented death and infections that way. But when it comes to the sniffles, the coughs, all those things that we have overused it. Another thing is that we don't realize is when you're eating non-organic meat, you are getting small doses of antibiotics in your food every single day. Over 70, yeah, questions?
So
non-organic.
So like at the grocery store, we should buy organic or we should not buy organic?
You should buy organic.
Got it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sorry.
Yep, good question. So you should buy organic. So when you're eating regular meat at the grocery store, when you're eating out at restaurants, when you're eating out anywhere, you're getting meat that is exposed to antibiotics.
Question for you about that. We were just talking about like labels and terms and stuff. Grass-fed does not always mean organic.
Sure.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, very good question. So grass-fed does not always
We
mean
think
organic.
grass-fed, great, super.
Yeah. You would hope and assume that they would be following clean measures like an organic farm would.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at a big box retailer, you want to look for that USDA label on it. Make sure it's on there.
Okay.
If you find a small mom and pop shop, they may not be able to afford that certification to come to their farm because it costs anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 for farms to get that on their product. So sometimes it's just out of their range. But if you know a local farmer, you can talk to them. They'll tell you if they raise their animals the right way without this stuff. So 70% of the pharmaceutical industry, where they get their customers for antibiotics, is the farming industry. 70% of our antibiotics go into farming. The rest is through us and through humans and through our use of hospitals. Chemicals. So these are things that are designed to kill bacteria. So triclosan has been banned since it used to be in antibacterial soaps. Parabens you'll find in your cleaning products, your personal care products, your eye creams, lotions. They are designed to kill microbes, kill bacteria. So when we put them on our body or ingest these things, they're also going to kill our good bacteria in our gut. Pesticides, biggest offender, they kill bugs. When we eat them, they kill our GI tract bugs too. So pesticides are number 2, and then preservatives are, again, it's another word for an antibiotic, preservative. It's meant to not allow bacterial growth, which is necessary, but at the same time, it should encourage you to eat more whole foods, fresh foods, and you won't need to worry about having to preserve your foods and things like that. And next thing is co-infection. So a lot of our guts, because of all of this stuff that has happened to us, so because of everything we're exposed to, our gut bacteria is now imbalanced. Things are overgrowing when they shouldn't. Our immune system is not as strong. So when we get exposed to things like other bacteria, mold, or parasites, they take over. Bacteria themselves can release histamine. And so when we think about allergies, histamine is the biggest culprit of what causes the swelling, the snot, and all of that. That's why you take an antihistamine to stop your allergy symptoms. So bacteria themselves can release histamine. Mold releases toxins that can be over 300 times more toxic than alcohol. So that means it's just aggravating your immune system a lot. So that in general will just cause your immune system to be stressed out. And parasites too. So parasites, you'll often see people who have a sensitivity to dairy when they have parasites. That's a really common interaction. So your gut. Your gut is amazing. It's the gatekeeper. It's supposed to get things that come in. What's meant to go into the body, come into the body, and what's meant to stay out of the body, get out in your stool. That's its job. But with all of the previous things that we just talked about, that whole entire thing becomes compromised. And now we're not building enough mucus in our digestive tract. We're not building the protection that we have, and it causes something called leaky gut syndrome. This is exactly what's happening. So if our body could speak every day, this is what it would look like. Almost everybody at this point in time has some level of leaky gut syndrome. I see it all the time in my office. And what's happening is when we eat food, when the digestive system is working properly, is that our food and nutrients and things are supposed to go through the cell. It's almost like a checker. It goes through the channel of the cell, the body does what it needs to do with it, expels the rest, and lets the other stuff into the bloodstream. When it doesn't happen, now things are going in between the cells. They're finding a hole in the wall, and they're going right in when it shouldn't. So you're getting undigested foods, you're getting bacteria, you're getting chemicals, you're getting things that should not be in your bloodstream end up there. And it does travel through your bloodstream for a little bit before it gets to the liver and gets checked. So there are some basically assaulting things that are happening. So this over time aggravates our immune system, just day in and day out. It's seeing these things and it shouldn't. So here's 9 ways to improve your allergies now. So these are more geared towards seasonal allergies, but like I said, we're gonna focus on more of the long-term stuff. So number 1 is you need to increase your stomach acid. This is the biggest misunderstood thing in the medical community today because everybody's on Zantac, proton pump inhibitors, which is like your Nexium, Prilosec, all of those things. It is a misconception that we need to lower our stomach acid. There are certain times when you need it, but it should only be used for the shortest time necessary, like 2 weeks maximum. But you'll find that some people are on these things for years. And we need stomach acid to protect our body. It's there for a reason. When you ingest things and there's microbes and bugs on it, your acid is supposed to kill it. That's its job, to protect you. If I were to take a drop of your stomach acid out of your belly and drop it onto this carpet right now, it would burn a hole in the carpet. That's how acidic it is. But you're wondering, how does it not digest the stomach? Again, our body is so amazing. We just appreciate it a little more. Our stomach lining constantly, on the outside, constantly makes mucus to push everything inward, so that acid never touches the membrane. It's constantly building that. So stomach acid is important for killing microbes. The next thing is it actually triggers digestion appropriately. Until your stomach acid reaches a certain level, then it opens the valve to get into your small intestines where everything for digestion occurs. And it triggers the right hormones to secrete, to break down your food properly. It just keeps things going downward. So stomach acid is very important. So one thing I like to recommend to most of my patients is apple cider vinegar. It's an easy way to increase your digestive acid. Is you take 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar and you mix it into about the same amount of water, or 1 to 2 ounces, which is like a shot. That's what you want to think of, like a double shot. And you're going to take that right after your meal. And then you follow with a sip of plain water, because you don't want acid in your mouth or your esophagus, because that's where it burns. So wash that away, and once it goes down, you're good. Question?
I do that. Why do you say after a meal? I guess so it makes sure the food goes where it needs to go.
Yeah, you could do it before, you could do it during. I prefer after, just so that it just kind of hits it from the top down and pushes everything down.
I do that with lemon water in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to start your digestion in the morning. You could use this anytime. If you feel bloated, upset, full, you overate, maybe you went out to eat and you ate things that you shouldn't eat, take some apple cider vinegar. What? Well, we'll go to get your question.
So I do that also, and I add local honey. And you said, and I do it before. So what meal? Because I'm guessing you just do it once a day, right?
You can do it with all your meals. You can do it as often as you need it. Once a day would be great. Dinner time would be the most important, I think, because you want to go to bed with an empty stomach.
So after every meal.
You can do it after every meal.
So is doing honey mixing, because I think it's so strong, is that helpful?
Yeah, that's okay. I think honey's a natural source, and I would especially raw honey. I'm just going to get to that next, but yes, raw honey is great for flavor. You had a question?
Yeah, we had a discussion about this just yesterday. That eats the enamel of your teeth. Is that
Right,
true?
it's true. Yeah, well, acidic things will break down the enamel of our teeth, so that's why I want you to, as soon as you drink it, you can drink it through a straw if you're concerned about that, or, like I said, we're gonna take a plain sip of water afterwards, rinse your mouth out, and rinse everything out and swallow. Another thing to keep in mind, I'll mention this, is you should not be drinking a ton of liquid around your mealtime. So this dilutes your stomach juices, and it actually slows down your digestion. So you should only sip as needed to get through the meal, and you shouldn't have anything large until about an hour after you eat. This way you allow time for your food to digest properly and move downward. Okay? All right, so healing your gut. This is kind of a complex topic. I can't go into it, but one thing you can start doing is a lot more soups and broths. When we use all parts of the animal, which when you're making a broth, you're using the carcass and all the ligaments that are between the bones, things you can't eat. But when you boil it in the water, the nutrients go into the water. And then you're able to drink that broth and you get all the nutrients that you need. So bone broth in particular has a lot of great gut healing stuff. So even just drinking bone broth as your liquid with dinner. Now, I know I just said you can't have a lot of liquid with dinner, but you can't have plain water with dinner. If you have a liquid that has something in it, like a soup, or lemon or apple cider vinegar, that's going to stimulate your juices. It's plain water that you shouldn't have with your big meals.
Is it easy to find grass-fed bone broth?
Yeah, I mean most stores are. A really great brand I like is called Kettle and Fire. Kettle and Fire. They're sold at Whole Foods. I've seen them at Organons or Organons, I don't know what everyone calls it. So this is something you can start doing, is drinking bone broth. If you're not drinking bone broth, have more soups. Get more broth into your diet. If you have children, put those in your smoothies. If you're doing smoothies instead of water, use broth. It's just a way to get some collagen, some good proteins in there to heal your guts. Oh, next is taking a local bee pollen supplement. So when you have seasonal allergies, this is important. And I would say this is way more important to start this back in like February, right? You want to start it about a month or two before you have your allergies. The reason why is because you're buying it locally. So the bees living in this area are going to have the plants and the flowers that are natural to this area. But when the bees land on the flowers, their legs, their wings, they brush on the pollen, and they pick up little parts of it, and they go to their beehive, and they leave little traces of it in their honey or their bee pollen, and then we ingest that. So this is a way to get small doses of the pollen to where it's enough that your body sees it, and it starts to get used to it, and then when the season hits, it becomes more easily to handle. This is the same thing if anyone who's gotten allergy shots before. This is the same exact concept. Small doses over time, and then your body will eventually get used to it. Allergy shots take over 5 years to work through with patients. So bee pollen supplement is great, local. Raw honey will do the same thing for you, local. It has to be raw. You'll see heated honey kills all the good in it. So if you're gonna do honey, always raw. Next is try a low-histamine diet. So you can look this up, I'm not gonna go through it, but there are some foods that are naturally higher in histamine. Almost all foods have them, but some are higher than others. Avocados are one, tomatoes are another. So there's just things that you need to look up to see if you suffer from seasonal allergies. This is exactly what you want to follow, okay? At least during this time, but not all the time. 5, avoid foods that block the breakdown of histamine. So these things are shown to block an enzyme specifically. Alcohol, number 1. Basically anything, alcohol is number 1. And anything that contains caffeine, so you're talking teas, coffee, energy drinks, any of those things will block the breakdown. So during this time, if you can be strict about something and you suffer from allergies, this is where you want to avoid. Or if you're having an allergic reaction or you're feeling awful, these are the things you want to avoid. Seasonal allergies, clean your nostrils daily. Sounds so simple, but it's true. You gotta wash the allergen out of your nose. And especially I would do it at nighttime because you've been out and about throughout the day. Go to bed with a clean nose. Morning and night would be great, whatever works for you. Another thing I should mention is if you go outside, don't rewear the same clothes. You gotta wash them, there's pollen on your clothes, you're just continuing to inundate yourself and get it on your furniture and that kind of thing. Keeping your windows closed, dusting and vacuuming frequently. And another thing, definitely take a picture of this. This is the best HEPA filter on the market that is the most cost effective. Its next level competitor is $1,100 per unit. This device right here, when it's on sale, which they do it every holiday, so Mother's Day is coming up, so if you want to get it the Air Doctor, this will be about $350. And it is better than any medical grade filter that you'll find, better than what's on airplanes. So a medical grade HEPA filter will filter things down to 0.3 microns. This one is 100 times better, 0.003. That's how small it can filter things out. So Air Doctor is, highly recommend them. Mother's Day is coming up, like I said. They'll do another one on Memorial Day, so you can get it on Amazon as well. This one I have about 2 of them. I have one in my living room. You want to put them in the spaces where you spend the most time. So number 1 is going to be your bedroom. They sell a smaller one that's more narrow that you can put into bedrooms. That's about 150, I'm not sure, something like that. And then this bigger one, it tells you the square foot it covers. I have one in my living room and one in my parlor, and then one in my bedroom. And once I have kids, one's going in every single room. So highly recommend that you start doing that. It also keeps your house cleaner, not gonna lie. Less dust settles on your stuff, everything. Now you can take supplements, they'll help clear histamine better. This is called Histamine Block Plus by Seeking Health. You can get this on Amazon, you can get this on some other places too. So this will just help you in the moment, get rid of histamine right then and there. For people who have food reactions, right, you eat a food and you have a histamine response, rashes, hives, itchiness, that kind of thing, you can take this with your meals and it'll help you handle that better. Another thing is quercetin. This is actually found naturally in some vegetables, so I highly guys recommend you do the cruciferous vegetables. This is your kale, cauliflower, cabbage, radishes, mustard greens. There's a whole slew of vegetables that are in this category. They're the highest. Onions, capers, apples, berries, tomatoes, and grapes. But you can take this supplement anywhere from 2 to 3 times a day. It's quercetin 500 milligram, but this will help you break down and process the allergic stuff that's happening to you. Next is to take probiotics. These are the 2 ones that I absolutely love because they don't release histamine in your body, so they're tolerated very well by everybody who I give it to. So Megaspore probiotic, and then Bifido Maximus is the other one. Prebiotic supplements, bigger than probiotics. So one of the reasons we've got into the situation where our gut bacteria is not strong is that our diet is very poor. The Western diet does not supply enough fiber or the right kinds of carbohydrates that contain fiber that feed the good bacteria. So there's a lot of research going into prebiotics. You could take probiotics all day long, but if you're not feeding them, they're not going to stay. They're not going to do their good work. So I actually value, I don't keep people on probiotics for a super long time. I may be keeping them on them for maybe 1 to 4 months. At the same time giving them the prebiotic supplements, and then I rely on the prebiotic supplements to keep feeding the good guys, and then also working with diet. You have a question?
Yes. As far as prebiotics, isn't there natural foods that you can eat?
Yep.
That will put the good bacteria in your body?
Yep. And I'm going to show you that on the next one. Yep. So these are, now we're going to move into the long term. What can you do? So those are the things you can do right now if you're struggling with this now. What can you do in the long term? So back to the probiotic screen, because this is still a long-term effort. You need to keep doing this. And I would say these things are for life. So probiotics, prebiotics. Another thing to point here, prenatal probiotics reduced allergies in infants and children, clinically studied. So if you are pregnant or you know someone who is pregnant, they should be taking probiotics because it will reduce the incidence of allergic disease in children as they grow older. Eating fermented foods. This is a way to get probiotics from our foods. Fermented foods is a lost tradition. We used to do it all the time when we didn't have refrigeration. It was how we preserved food for months on end. So these are things like your sauerkraut, your kimchi, and kefir is sour, basically yogurt. I highly recommend that you do goat's milk if you are doing dairy. Goat's milk is most like human milk, so it's better tolerated, but you can do cow's milk. What makes kefir different from yogurt is kefir is more liquidy, and what happens is when they sour the milk, it's all together at once, and it grows together. The yogurt is heated, made first, and then they add the probiotic strains into it. So the difference is you're getting you're getting what nature intended out of kefir, or kefir is what some people call it, than yogurt. Now, always buy plain when you're doing dairy yogurts and kefirs because they put so much sugar in those products that you need to be careful. Kimchi is really great. This Great Wild Grind is a really great company. They have a bunch of different flavors for sauerkraut as well. So you can find them at Organics and Whole Foods. And sauerkraut, you can make it home, but you can also buy it in the store. The way that you eat some fermented foods is every day you have a serving. So it's about 2 tablespoons. You treat these things like a condiment. You drink the juice. Don't ever throw out the juice in these things. You drink the juice. Keep it. That's where all the good stuff is. Same thing with the kefir. You have 40 to 48 ounces, whatever the serving size is. Keeping that in mind. Now here's where you get fibers from your food. If we were doing already a good job of this, we wouldn't have these problems, but we don't do that here in America. I'm sorry, it's our diet. Our grocery stores have the same rotating foods. We eat the same stuff all the time. But these are the foods that you want to focus on, fermentable foods. So artichokes, asparagus, chicory, garlic, onions, leeks, bananas, roots and tubers. These are things that just grow underground. Gluten-free sprouted grains. Anytime you're eating bread or grains or anything, it should be organic and it should be sprouted. Can't go into details about why, but it's easier to digest for nutrients. Beans. Beans are good for our health too, only when they're pressure cooked. Beans have something irritating in there called saponins. They irritate our gut lining and further cause leaky gut syndrome. Same thing with grains. Grains, when they're not sprouted, can irritate our gut and cause leaky gut syndrome. That's why they have to be prepared properly. So when we pressure cook our beans, it's better. So don't rely on canned beans. You basically buy dry beans, soak them overnight, and then put them in a pressure cooker for 30 minutes, and you're good to go. Again,
Put some examples of gluten-free sprouted grains.
so buckwheat, millet, there's brown rice you can have sprouted, those types of things. Quinoa is a seed. That's a different family.
Quinoa is what?
Quinoa is in the seed family. It's not a grain.
Family.
Yeah, so that's not a grain. So these are the foods that we would get. Now, probiotics, fiber, eating these foods. If you have a problem eating these foods, you eat them, you get stomach ache, you get cramping, it doesn't agree with you, that means that you have a gut imbalance. You've got some more bad guys overgrowing than good. And so we'll get to that. You should seek professional help and get some guidance on how to clear that out so you can break down these foods. Because the goal is not to avoid these foods. The goal is to eat them. If they bother you, you need to eat less.
Question. So it's so funny because I mentioned the artichokes earlier, but garlic. I love garlic in so many shapes and forms. But my husband says he could smell me from across the room. Is it normal for garlic to come out your pores?
Yes.
Okay.
Very normal. Yeah, it is. It could also be
stomach terribly, but
right, and that's another reason why it's coming out your skin
okay.
is because you're not absorbing it properly in your gut.
Okay.
So it's coming out in a different way. So I don't want to say that it's normal that you smell like it, but it's possible. But you shouldn't.
Right.
You know? So yeah.
You
So
haven't
to
met
the
my tiny
extent,
family, they're always smelling like garlic.
Yeah.
That and olive oil.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So the goal is if you have trouble eating these foods, you should not avoid them. The idea is low and slow and less frequently. So if you eat, say you had beans and you had like 4 or 5 tablespoons of beans and you're like, oh my God, I can't do it. You ate too much. Not to avoid them. Next time you eat them, you should scale it way back and go to 1 tablespoon. I know that sounds very small and very little, but you need to gradually work your body up into eating these foods. The problem is that we have such restrictive diets now. Everyone's on an elimination diet. Everyone's avoiding this food and that food. We're actually missing beneficial foods that we need for our health. So we could do those things short term, but you gotta start slowly working back into these things. You can't avoid them. It's about, eating it today and then waiting 3 days and having it again, eating it again, and then slowly increasing. As soon as you feel worse again, you scale back. Okay, let me go back to week 1. Let me go what I did last week. But it's a consistency that matters here. Next thing is you have to avoid inflammatory foods. If your immune system is showing allergies, food intolerances, your immune system is already angry. So these are things that you can control in your daily life that will just reduce some of those irritants in your daily life. So sugar is number 1, the most offensive ingredient in foods. It has been linked with so many conditions and diseases and inflammatory stuff. Artificial sweeteners, because they disrupt the gut flora. They cause the bad ones to overgrow, everything gets a little off and funky. Grains, especially wheat and gluten, and it's because gluten is a hard to digest protein. The gluten molecule sticks to our lining of our gut and just pulls at it, and it doesn't get broken down properly, so it causes leaky gut syndrome. So I have all of my patients avoid gluten when they start working with me because it is so offensive and we can't tolerate it. Eventually you can work these things back in, but you have to work slowly up to that. Eventually you'll get there. So another thing is vegetable and seed oils. So these are things like your canola oil, soy, corn, safflower, sunflower. What you'll find is when you start reading your food labels, these are, sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button. These are in everything. And it's the reason why they're too high in omega-6s, which are inflammatory, right? We think of omega-3s as healthy, reduces inflammation. These make things worse. So unfortunately, we're so inundated with these oils that it causes a lot of inflammation. Restaurants use them, they're cheap, they're subsidized by the government. They're not using things like coconut oil is what you should be using. Olive oil is number one. Sesame oil is another one. There's a lot of avocado oil, nuts and seeds. Those are your good places to get your fats. So these are the things that you want to start avoiding. Next thing is get professional help. If you do have seasonal allergies, if you are showing these signs, don't let this go under the wayside. This is when your body is showing you symptoms with allergies, it's trying to talk to you. It's your job to listen. And so my job is I teach people how to listen to the subtle signs that their body is telling them. And some people blatantly have signs. They'll eat foods and be like, man, I was splitting headache after I ate that. Oh, why are you still eating that? Or man, I ate that and I got itchy, but I still ate the whole bowl. Why? Your body is literally telling you in that moment it doesn't like it. Why are you ignoring it? The more that you ignore it, the more angry it's going to get, and then the more weaker it gets. It gets tired. It's like, oh my God, here it is again, this thing that I don't like. It's just continually coming at me. Then the immune system is not strong enough to fight your regular other stuff, the infections and things that come across. So get professional help. It's not, we're here to help you guys, right? So a functional integrative doctor or a functional medicine doctor to heal your gut. Get tested for SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I didn't talk about that. Big cause of bloating, cramping, gas problems. Wrong bacteria are living there. Mold and other intestinal pathogens. And then get tested for food sensitivities. So there's blood work that you can get that will test your immune system response to that, and you should avoid those pretty strictly. And food sensitivities aren't forever. They will go away. You need to avoid them for a while, heal your gut, and you can bring these things back into your diet. So if it's not me, find somebody else, but I'm here for you guys. This is what I do all the time in my office. So I love this quote, take care of your body. It's the only place you have to live. So one thing that I offer that I want to share with you guys again about is my Restart class. This is teaching you how to take care of your body using food. So my Restart class is real food, real learning, real support. It's a part nutrition class. You're going to learn everything I learned in very small, easy to follow, condensed, right to the point information. It's a part sugar detox. So we're going to challenge you to change your diet. We're going to do it together. And it's a support group. We're all doing it together. We're going to share what sucks. We're going to share recipes. We're keeping each other accountable. So there's a lot of benefit from this. And it's only 3 weeks. You can do anything for 3 weeks. So I have a person in my group currently, this is her 3rd time doing the class. And it's not because she needs it. She's one of my healthiest patients, but she loves the accountability. She loves the support. She loves the group atmosphere. So it works for some people. It works for others. So what are you gonna learn? You're gonna learn how to use real food to boost your energy, improve your immune system, reduce inflammation. You're gonna fit better in your clothes. Guys, summer's around the corner. Learn how to become a fat burner. You're gonna improve your sleep, improve clarity and focus, and you're gonna get rid of your sugar cravings once and for all. The next class I'm gonna start is on Monday nights, the day after Mother's Day, May 9th, at 7:30 p.m. So check it out. If you want access to supplements and the way that I can guide you individually, because everybody is different, this is where you could go to get the supplement. I write recommendations on there. I can give you everything. I can guide you and follow up with you and make sure that you're feeling better and making sure everything's working. If you want to join my Restart class, you can just visit my main website, but this is the link, Restart, and then to contact me, my email, my website, and my phone number. Question?
I'm sleeping better too.
You're sleeping better too. So you're sleeping better, you're down some weight, which is awesome. And it's only been 1 week. That's huge for her to say?
Yeah, she's like insomnia all the time and up at 3, and so she's sleeping.
Because when we eat these inflammatory foods all day long, our nervous system is constantly in fight or flight. It's constantly like, I gotta survive, I gotta survive, I gotta survive. So even when you're trying to sleep, the body's like, nope, I can't sleep. There's still all these things floating in my blood. I can't calm down, I can't relax. So when you clean up your diet and you get rid of those inflammatory things, your body goes, there's nothing to distract me here, I can now relax. And then it can focus on healing. Go ahead, Esty, first.
Right, so I have a question regarding, you mentioned that you wouldn't recommend taking a probiotic for a long time.
You can do it long term. But what I'm saying is you're going to get more benefit out of taking the fiber with it or fiber by itself too.
In other words, eating or consuming a prebiotic.
Right, a prebiotic.
So what's the best, my other question is, it's twofold. When is the best time to
So probiotics are best to be taken empty stomach. You could do it morning or night. Most of them are empty stomach without food because you want to ensure the survival of the probiotic to your, remember, because the acid's there to kill. So some lines have a delayed release capsule, which means it's protected by the stomach acid and it won't release until it gets to your small intestines or your large intestines, which is where we want that to go. So it's important to understand that buying any probiotic off the shelf, you don't even know if your body's really getting it. So finding a trusted brand, which is, you'll get a bunch of trusted brands here. They take care of their stuff. It's all professional grade, studied. When it comes to taking probiotics and prebiotics, the trick is to start slow. Whatever the bottle says for you to take, you're going to take a quarter of that dose. Do not take the full. You're going to have GI symptoms, cramps, bloating, diarrhea. Everything will just be heightened because now you're giving the body what it needs, but you're giving it too much at once. It's not used to that. So if it says 2 scoops, you're only going to use maybe a quarter of a scoop. And you're going to wait. You're going to test it out. And you're going to see how your body responds. If you do well, keep doing that for about a week. The next week, then you increase to a half of a scoop. Your body tolerates that well, good. As soon as you feel off, you go, wait a minute, let me give myself a break for a couple days. I'm gonna go back to 1 scoop. I'm gonna do that for a little bit longer.
So
You
would you
slowly-
say like 4 hours after you have dinner is a good time to take it?
Yeah.
For your bed?
Yeah, before you go to bed, it's a great time, or right when you wake up if you have an empty stomach.
Thank you. Great sentence.
Yeah, and you're welcome. And the probiotics too, when you start your probiotics, it's good to start them one today and then go to every other day first. Then you take 1 every day, and then you build up to maybe 2 a day, and you stay on 2 a day for a while.
What are the symptoms of leaky gut syndrome?
Anything. And the reason is because leaky gut syndrome, I would say the most common ones are going to be your digestive discomfort and your brain health. So if you are foggy, you can't think, your memory's going, like I said, the tripping, the dropping things, the clumsiness, the instability when you're walking, that means that things are getting into your body and your immune system can't keep up with it. But you'll see things, any inflammatory condition, so high blood pressure, think about heart disease, that's all inflammatory conditions. Things that arthritis and joint pain are big. I find a lot of my patients, when we clean up their diet, all their joint pain goes away, sciatica goes away, because the inflammation comes down. So it's kind of insidious because it affects every part of the body. So, and then that's where your genetic factors come in. What is your family predisposition to? And that's when your lifestyle will maybe make you start going towards where your genes are, because now you have a weakness in your genes, so that's kind of where you can start saying, oh, I have diabetes in my family, I should really get rid of sugar, because I might get that too, you know? Good.
So why do they tell people not to, or especially pregnant women, not to have unpasteurized things, and like include, so like I didn't even know honey could be pasteurized or not. And then I would like had tea one time with honey, I couldn't have coffee. And then they were like, oh, you can't have unpasteurized honey. And I was like, well, that's bullshit. Like, so why can't, like, what's the difference?
So there are bacteria that can thrive in there. That's the whole purpose of it. So by pasteurizing things, we heat it to a certain temperature that kills them all. So it makes it safer to ingest.
Okay.
Back in the day, before the 50s, we were all eating drinking unpasteurized milk and raw honey and doing all that stuff. Today, what the problem is that our guts are so messed up. Our stomach acid isn't working as properly. And so we can't kill those things efficiently as we used to back in the day. So it's because our guts are compromised now. So they tell you to do that now to be safer. Yeah. But I would say if you're doing the apple cider vinegar, you can even take a digestive enzyme that has stomach acid in it so that it'll help you. You can ingest those things. There's a lot of education around that. There's still always a risk, right? So you can't always assume that you're clean, but this is the same reason why some people go out to eat. They all eat the same foods, but somebody gets food poisoning and the other person doesn't. It's because their gut bacteria in their stomach has different contents. The one person's bacteria and acid was stronger, so they were able to kill everything. The other person wasn't. And so they were compromised from it and they got sick. And there truly could be a pathogen in there that your body doesn't want, but did you wonder that before? So that's why the apple cider vinegar is a good like safety measure, you know, get things moving, get things along. Any other questions? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. So message me anytime with questions, guys. I'm always here for you guys.
And I'll add all of your links and your contact information on our Facebook